On my 34th birthday, I stood frozen as cranberry juice dripped down my $2,400 SEAL uniform. My niece smirked, "Now you look as cheap as you really are." My mother clapped. My sister smiled. They didn't know. This would be the night everything changed. I stared down at that dark red stain spreading across my white uniform, the same uniform I earned after years of grueling service and discipline. Years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice reduced to a mockery in their eyes. But before we go further, before I tell you how a decorated Navy SEAL finally fought her hardest battle, like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from, because what happened next? No training could have prepared me for it. My name is Commander Helena Brooks. 12 years of service. Countless missions. Countless sacrifices. I've jumped out of planes at 30,000 feet. I've held my breath underwater for 4 minutes straight. I've carried wounded comrades through enemy fire and never once looked back. I've earned every stripe, every medal, every goddamn piece of respect that comes with this uniform. But you know what? None of that mattered to them. Not one bit. To my family, I wasn't Commander Brooks. I wasn't the woman who dedicated her life to serving her country. I wasn't the soldier who'd proven herself in combat zones most people couldn't even pronounce. No. To them, I was just Lena, the girl who plays soldier. The disappointment who chose fatigues over wedding dresses. The stubborn one who refused to grow up and settle down like a proper woman should. My sister Melissa? She's never worked a day in her life. Not one. She's 36 years old, and she's never held a job for more than 3 months. But somehow she's the golden child. The successful one. The one who knows how to live life properly. Because she married well, twice, and she knows how to smile pretty and say the right things at dinner parties. She calls herself an influencer now. 3,000 followers on Instagram posting pictures of her brunch and her designer handbags. Meanwhile, I'm leading tactical operations in hostile territories, but apparently that's just me playing dress-up. And my mother? God, my mother still calls me Lena like I'm 12 years old. Every conversation starts the same way. When are you going to quit this military nonsense and find a nice man? As if everything I've accomplished, every life I've saved, every mission I've completed successfully, as if all of that is just a phase I'm going through. Military stuff isn't for women anyway, she loves to say. Never mind that I've proven myself alongside the best soldiers in the world. Never mind that my commanding officers respect me. Never mind that I've earned my place through merit, not politics or connections or marriage. You want to know the cruelest part? The part that cuts deepest? I still cared what they thought. After everything, after proving myself in the most elite military unit in the world, I still desperately wanted their approval. I still wanted my mother to look at me with pride instead of disappointment. I still wanted my sister to see me as an equal instead of a curiosity. So when I came home after 18 months deployed overseas, I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time they'd finally see the woman I'd become instead of the girl they remembered. Maybe this time they'd understand that I wasn't playing soldier, I was a soldier. I planned everything perfectly. A private dinner at La Mer d'Or, the most exclusive restaurant in San Diego. The kind of place where you need reservations 3 months in advance. The kind of place that commands respect just by walking through the doors. I wanted to celebrate 2 milestones, my promotion to lieutenant commander and my 34th birthday. Both hard-won victories that I thought foolishly might finally bridge the gap between us. Maybe tonight, I told myself while pressing my dress whites to perfection, they'll finally see the woman I've become, not the girl they mocked. That uniform meant everything to me. Every crease was precise. Every button polished. Every ribbon earned through blood and determination. It wasn't just fabric, it was proof. Proof that I belonged. Proof that I'd made something of myself. Proof that their little Lena had become Commander Brooks. I should have known better. My SEAL brothers arrived early, Marcus, Rodriguez, and Chin. Good men. Loyal men. Men who'd trust me with their lives and who I'd trust with mine. They teased me gently about wearing dress whites to dinner, but there was respect in their voices. Real respect. The kind I'd earned, not the kind I'd begged for. Looking sharp, Commander, Marcus said with a grin. Save some dignity for the rest of us. Just don't spill anything on that uniform, Rodriguez laughed. That thing's worth more than my car. They understood. They got it. To them, I wasn't pretending to be anything. I was exactly who I was supposed to be. Then my family walked in. Late, of course. 23 minutes late to be exact, because heaven forbid they show up on time for something that mattered to me. Melissa strutted in like she was walking a red carpet, overdressed in some ridiculous designer gown that probably cost more than most people make in a month. My mother looked around the restaurant with that expression she gets, like everything is slightly beneath her standards. And my niece Freya? 17 years old, glued to her phone, already rolling her eyes before she'd even sat down. Wow, Lena, Melissa said, not even trying to hide the sarcasm. Still pretending you're saving the world? My mother looked me up and down with obvious disappointment. You could have worn a dress like a normal woman. This is a nice restaurant. A dress. A dress. As if my uniform. The uniform I'd earned through more pain and dedication than they could possibly imagine was somehow inappropriate. As if I should be ashamed of who I'd become. I watched my SEAL brothers exchange looks. They could sense the tension immediately. These were men trained to read situations, to assess threats, to know when a mission was about to go sideways. And they could see what I was too stubborn to admit. This was already a disaster. But I swallowed my pride. I forced a smile. Let's just enjoy dinner, I said, trying to keep the peace. Trying to be the bigger person. Trying to prove I could turn the other cheek just like they'd always wanted me to. God, I was such a fool. The dinner started badly and got worse. Every story I told about my promotion, about my service, about the men and women I'd served alongside, everything was met with eye rolls or condescending smiles. When I mentioned leading a rescue operation in Afghanistan, Melissa actually yawned. When I talked about the leadership training I'd completed, my mother changed the subject to Freya's grades. I kept trying. I kept hoping. I kept believing that maybe, if I just found the right words, the right story, the right approach, maybe they'd finally understand. So when dessert came, I stood up. I raised my glass. I thought maybe a toast would help. Maybe expressing gratitude would shift the energy. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, I began. It means more than you know to have family. That's when Freya started her performance. Oh my God, she said loudly enough for half the restaurant to hear. Are you seriously going to make a speech? What are you, a robot? She stood up and started mocking me, actually mocking me. Pretending to salute, marching in place, making exaggerated military gestures while saying, "Yes, sir," "No, sir," in a ridiculous voice. My sister laughed. Actually laughed. Like watching her daughter humiliate me was the funniest thing she'd ever seen. My mother just shook her head with that familiar look of disappointment. Don't take it so seriously, Lena. You've been too bossy since boot camp anyway. Bossy. I've been bossy. Not confident. Not capable. Not competent. Bossy. I sat back down. I tried to stay calm. I tried to remember my training, de-escalate, assess, respond strategically. But the rage was building. The pain was building. 18 months overseas protecting the freedom of people who couldn't even respect me enough to let me finish a toast. That's when it happened. Freya picked up her mocktail, cranberry juice and soda, bright red as blood, and accidentally threw it at me. All over my dress whites. All over the uniform I'd spent an hour preparing. All over the symbol of everything I'd worked for. The entire restaurant went silent. I mean dead silent. 50 people watching cranberry juice drip down the uniform of a decorated Navy SEAL officer while a teenage girl smirked at her handiwork. Oops, Freya said, not even trying to sound sincere. My bad. And then my sister, my own sister, delivered the killing blow. Now you look as cheap as you really are. My mother clapped. softly, politely, like she was applauding a performance. Maybe now you'll relax, Lena. I stood there motionless. My posture still military sharp because that's what 18 years of training does to you. It makes you stand tall even when your world is collapsing. But inside? Inside, I was breaking apart. The stains spread across my chest like a wound. Dark red against pristine white. The fabric that represented honor, sacrifice, dedication ruined. And not by enemy fire or combat conditions, but by my own family. By people who were supposed to love me. My SEAL brothers were on their feet immediately. I could see the anger in their eyes, the kind of anger that comes from watching someone you respect get disrespected. Marcus looked like he wanted to say something. Rodriguez's hands were clenched into fists. Chin was already reaching for his wallet. But I held up my hand. One small gesture. Stand down. Because this wasn't their fight. This was mine. And I finally understood what I was really fighting. Dinner's over, I said quietly. Thank you all for coming. That was it. No yelling. No screaming. No breakdown. Just 5 words that ended 18 years of hoping things would change. Marcus immediately draped his jacket over my shoulders. Not because I was cold, but because he understood dignity. He understood respect. He understood that sometimes covering someone's wounds is the most important mission you'll ever have. We walked out in formation, not because we planned it, but because that's what good soldiers do. They protect their own. Outside, under the soft glow of the San Diego streetlights, I finally let myself speak the truth. I've faced worse in war, I whispered. But not like this. Never like this. Because enemy bullets? Those I could handle. Hostile territories? Bring them on. Physical pain, exhaustion, fear, all of that was part of the job. But this was different. This was the people who were supposed to love you treating you like you were worthless. This was your own family destroying you just because they could. Rodriguez put his hand on my shoulder. Commander, you don't deserve this. No, I said, and for the first time that night, my voice was steady. I don't. Back home, I removed my uniform with the same precision I'd put it on. Every button undone carefully. Every ribbon removed and stored properly. But my hands were shaking now. 18 years of military discipline, and my hands were shaking like a recruit's. I folded that stained uniform and placed it in my closet. As I did, tears fell, not from sadness anymore, but from something else. Something that felt like freedom. Because standing there in my bedroom, still tasting humiliation, I realized something crucial. I was done. Done hoping. Done trying. Done begging for scraps of respect from people who would never give it. The girl who desperately needed their approval? She died that night. What was left was Commander Helena Brooks, and she had work to do. The next morning brought military precision, not for combat, but for boundaries. Real boundaries. The kind that aren't suggestions or requests, but hard lines drawn in concrete. First, I canceled all family financial support. Every monthly transfer to Melissa. Every emergency fund I'd set up for my mother. Every college contribution I'd been making for Freya. All of it. Gone. You want to treat me like I'm worthless? Fine. But worthless people don't bankroll your lifestyle. Second, I removed my sister as a cosigner from my Navy federal credit card. Turns out she'd been using it for months without telling me. Thousands of dollars in charges I never authorized. Shopping sprees, spa days, restaurant bills, all on my dime while she mocked my career. Third, I reported the unauthorized use of my military spouse housing allowance. See, Melissa had been clever, or so she thought. She'd forged paperwork claiming to be married to a deployed service member, which qualified her for subsidized housing. Fraud against the military is a federal crime, and I had documentation of everything. Fourth, I filed legal action. Not out of anger. Anger is sloppy, and I don't do sloppy. I filed because that's what you do when someone commits crimes against you. You hold them accountable. In the SEALs, I told my attorney, we don't retaliate with rage. We strategize. And my strategy was simple. Treat my family exactly like what they'd proven themselves to be. Not family. Not allies. Threats to be neutralized. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Melissa called me screaming. Actually screaming into the phone like a child having a tantrum. You can't do this. We're family. You can't just cut us off. Watch me, I said, and hung up. Freya posted on social media, mocking, anti-seal, and making jokes about military people being uptight. She even posted a video reenacting her mocktail throw, laughing about how she'd brought me down a peg. I screenshotted everything. Every post. Every comment. Every laughing emoji. Then I sent them to my attorney along with a cease and desist letter. Harassment of military personnel is taken seriously, especially when there's documentation. Funny how quickly the posts disappeared. My mother called last. Of course she did. She always was the smartest one in the family, which isn't saying much, but still. She knew I was serious. Helena, she said, using my real name for the first time in years. Family doesn't sue family. Family doesn't humiliate their own either, I replied softly. Silence. The same silence I'd once feared, now peaceful as a morning prayer. You're really going to destroy us over a little joke? She asked. A little joke. A little joke. 18 years of disrespect, financial fraud, and public humiliation, all reduced to a little joke. I'm not destroying anything, Mom. I'm just stopping the rebuilding of what you already destroyed. She hung up. They all did, eventually. And for the first time in my adult life, my phone wasn't buzzing with demands, emergencies, and guilt trips from people who'd never once asked how I was doing. The silence was beautiful. 2 months passed. 2 months of peace. 2 months of keeping my money, my dignity, and my sanity. 2 months of not being anyone's backup plan or emergency fund or emotional punching bag. Then Melissa got a job. Her first real job in 15 years. A receptionist position at a dental office. $8 an hour, 4 days a week. Not glamorous, but honest work. She called me on a Tuesday. I got a job, she said, and I could hear something in her voice I'd never heard before. Pride, maybe. Or just exhaustion from finally having to support herself. Congratulations, I said, and I meant it. It's not much, but it's something. Something is everything when you earn it yourself. Freya was next. She showed up at my apartment one evening, no announcement, no warning. Just 17 years old and crying on my doorstep. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry, Aunt Helena. I didn't realize what you went through. I didn't understand. I just wanted attention. I wanted someone to notice me, and making fun of you got the biggest reaction. I looked at this kid, because that's what she was, a kid, and I saw something I recognized. The desperate need for approval. The willingness to tear others down just to feel important. The performance of confidence hiding deep insecurity. I saw myself at 17, before the military taught me what real strength looked like. Come in, I said. We talked for 3 hours. Really talked. Not the surface-level family gathering nonsense, but real conversation. I told her about my training, about the missions, about what it really meant to serve. She told me about school, about feeling invisible, about parents who were too busy fighting to notice their daughter. I want to be strong like you, she said before she left. Strength isn't about tearing others down, Freya. It's about building yourself up. And building others up too. The last to come around was my mother. Of course it was. She'd spent 62 years believing that love meant control, that family meant obligation, that respect was something you demanded rather than earned. She came to my apartment 3 months after the dinner. No phone call, no warning. Just showed up like she'd done when I was a kid, and she needed to lecture me about something. But she didn't lecture. She stood in my doorway looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, and she whispered 4 words I'd waited my entire life to hear. You make me proud, Commander. Commander. Not Lena. Not honey. Not sweetie. Commander. I invited her in for coffee. We sat at my kitchen table, The same table where I'd planned military strategies and written reports and made decisions that affected people's lives, and she finally asked me about my work. Really asked. Not to mock or dismiss, but to understand. I told her about the rescue missions, about the people I'd saved, about the young soldiers I'd mentored, about the responsibility of leadership and the weight of command, about what it meant to dedicate your life to something bigger than yourself. She listened. Actually listened. For the first time in my memory, my mother sat quietly and let me speak without interruption or judgment. I didn't understand, she said finally. I thought you were running away from us. From family. From normal life. I didn't realize you were running toward something. I wasn't running at all, Mom. I was standing still. I was becoming who I was supposed to be. My 35th birthday was different. Completely different. I didn't wear my uniform. I wore a simple black dress and a smile that said peace. Not the fake peace of pretending everything was fine, but the real peace that comes from finally knowing your worth. My SEAL brothers came, of course. Marcus brought his wife. Rodriguez brought his kids. Chin brought homemade dumplings because he's that kind of friend. Before dinner, they stood and saluted, not mockingly, not sarcastically, but with the quiet respect of people who understood what I'd accomplished. Mission accomplished, ma'am, Marcus said with a grin. And it was. Not the mission I'd started with, the desperate quest for family approval, but a better one. The mission of becoming someone who didn't need anyone else's permission to be proud of herself. My family came too. All of them. But they came differently this time. Melissa brought flowers and arrived on time. Freya put her phone away and asked questions about my career. My mother called me Commander again, and I could tell she practiced saying it right. They were different because I was different. I'd stopped begging for their love and started commanding their respect. I'd stopped shrinking myself to fit their expectations and started taking up the space I'd earned. The dinner was lovely. Peaceful. Real. As we walked out, Freya took my arm. Aunt Helena, she said. I'm thinking about joining ROTC at school. Why? I asked. Because I want to be like you. Strong. Independent. Respected. You already are strong, Freya. You just need to learn how to use it to build instead of destroy. She nodded seriously, like she was taking notes. That night, as I hung up my simple black dress, I thought about uniforms. About the symbols we wear and the meaning we give them. About the difference between respect that's demanded and respect that's earned. My dress whites hang in my closet now, cleaned and pressed and ready for the next formal occasion. The stain came out completely. Turns out cranberry juice isn't permanent after all. Just like family dysfunction. Just like cycles of disrespect. Just like the belief that you have to accept whatever treatment people decide to give you. None of it's permanent if you're willing to do the work to change it. If you've ever had to fight a battle that wasn't on the field, one where the enemy wore your family's face, I see you. I understand the particular pain of being hurt by people who are supposed to love you. I know the exhaustion of trying to earn what should be freely given. I know the heartbreak of realizing that sometimes the people you die for wouldn't even inconvenience themselves for you. But I also know the freedom that comes from finally saying enough. The peace that comes from setting boundaries. The strength that comes from walking away from people who don't deserve your energy, even when they share your DNA. Sometimes the hardest mission is setting yourself free. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappoint people who have already disappointed you. Sometimes love means protecting yourself from people who call it family. I learned that at 34, standing in a restaurant with cranberry juice on my uniform and murder in my heart. I learned that respect isn't something you beg for, it's something you command. I learned that family isn't about blood, it's about honor. And I learned that sometimes the girl who desperately needs approval has to die so the woman who deserves respect can be born. My name is Commander Helena Brooks. I've served my country for 18 years. I've earned every stripe, every medal, every ounce of respect that comes with this uniform. And I'll never again apologize for taking up the space I've earned. Like, subscribe, and comment your country below, because your strength might be the story someone else needs to hear tonight. Because sometimes the most important mission you'll ever complete is the one that saves yourself.